Welcome back to Elisha's Space, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of transformative leaders and inspirational figures in our community. In today's episode, we're thrilled to have a special guest, Dr. Jim Van Allen, president of the Energy Bus for Schools. Dr. Van Allen is a key figure in transforming school cultures across the country through his dynamic leadership and innovative programs. He works closely with educators to foster environments that promote positivity, collaboration, and effective communication. Get ready to be energized and inspired as we explore the impact of positive school cultures and how they pave the way to educational success. Thank you, Elisha Space audience, for joining us today. It is such a pleasure to have Dr. Jim Van Allen join us today. He is an individual that I absolutely knew I wanted to have join us for this show. Reason is because there's a lot about him that he can share and will be shared throughout the podcast episode while we're talking, that he'll tell his story and everything else. But the thing is that he is someone who tries to bring more positivity, more encouragement, more light, more happiness. And he helps other people find that too in their own individual world. And I thought that was such a great thing to do because, especially with the clientele that I've been working with and the community and space that I've been, even in business settings, there's a lot of discouragement. There's a lot of things that are frustrating, and seeing the good within those frustrating moments, those discouraging moments, I think that speaks loudly. So I want to thank you, Dr. Jim Van Allen, for joining us today to Elisha Space.
Elisha, it's great to be here. I consider it my life's mission and purpose to spread positivity to individuals, and especially to our educators and our teachers and district leaders and schools that are out there. That's my main focus, and happy to be having this conversation with you today.
Yes, and it's so important with reaching out to our educators and anyone that is in the education vein. I think that's important to do because you're pouring into someone. And so why not pour good, positive energy to them? Could you please let us know what positive mindset is and why it's important for personal growth and success?
Well, if you think about a positive mindset, to me, it's a way of life. To me, it's how we should be operating every single day. And if you think about it, if you have a positive mindset, it's what you're thinking about daily, and it's the energy that you're putting out there into the world and to other people too. So when you see somebody with a positive mindset, it's inspiring because we strive for that. So when you see others practicing good positive thinking habits and just trying to walk around with some joy on their face, right? And looking for the good in the world and not necessarily complaining all the time. When you come across these individuals, friends, family, whomever, it's inspiring. It makes you want to have what they're having, right? And become that. So to me, like I said, it's a way of life, and it's something we should be striving for, because honestly, it does not come naturally. It is not a natural thing sometimes to be positive. It never has been, and the world only makes it more difficult to have the positive mindset. So way of life, outward energy are definitely two huge parts of what I believe it's all about.
As a matter of fact, when it comes to studying behavior, we're inclined to look at the problem and see how to find solutions to the problem. And if the solution or options or variables of those problems aren't a favorable outcome that we're looking for, it is very easy. We naturally go to that negative space. And so quite often when speaking with people, working with people, you kind of have to, it's almost like how like you do computers and you have to like rewire the computers a little bit. Similar thing. It's like a rewiring that you have to do, and to help people to kind of see where is the good in this? What is the good in the situation? Like I lost my job. What is the good in that? And trying to find the gold amongst the coals.
It's all about neuroplasticity. That's exactly what you mentioned it. That's rewiring of the brain, and that takes. I mean, as you get older, neuroplasticity is building new neurological connections and teaching your brain how to do something. So as an infant or a child, it's easier to learn a new skill, right? Because your brain is still developing. But as you become an adult, like probably a lot of our listeners are here, you're already set in your ways quite a bit. You're already set in your standards and your habits, and habits not just physically but mentally too. So
Right.
negative thinking is a lot of times a result of a habit of being negative and
Hmm.
complaining, and something poor happens and your first initial thing, or challenge happens or change happens, and our first initial thing is to go to the negative, because that's all you've done.
Right.
So that's why we have to be working on conscious strategies and self-talk to bring us to the point where we are actually building new neurological connections towards being positive. Like I said, as an adult, it's very hard to do. It's like, you have highways all over the country, right? You're trying to build a new highway right on top of the old one. That's not going to happen overnight in the real world, and it's not going to happen overnight in your brain. So it's challenging, but that's growth. That's life. I mean, I love people who are continuously trying to get better and
Right.
grow, and
Me
not
too.
just stay the same as they get older and older and become more and more entrenched in views and ways, and not willing to grow as a human being, which is what neuroplasticity is all about. We're human beings, right? We want to grow. We want to scaffold. We want to get better. We want to have progress. Society, but individually as human beings as well, we want to have progress with our own mental behavior as well, for sure.
I wrote a piece about how the brain actually changes with its connections if you've been dealing with depression for a long period of time. And what you're saying is very true. It completely shifts. So that's why, as soon as you're noticing something, in my humble opinion, I think as soon as you notice something, you want to pay attention to it, because the longer you let it sit, the longer it festers. And that's the same way, I think, when it comes to having when it comes to going to that place of shifting when there's a negative mindset or a negative perspective about something, as soon as you're aware, as it makes sense, try to go into the positive place, because you don't want to become accustomed to being set in your ways when it comes to that.
No, 100%. That takes effort and conscious awareness
Right.
to immediately either push that negative thought to the side, or speak truth into that negative thought, and not what I always call with my clients and people I work with, going down the rabbit hole. When you start going down the rabbit hole, it's dangerous, right? Have you ever gone on YouTube and you search for one video or one song to listen to, and all of a sudden you're
Absolutely.
like, oh, look at that one. Oh, look at that one. Oh, the next, and all of a sudden you're like, what did I come on here to do?
Three
And
hours in.
exactly. And our thinking's the same way, right? If you
Right.
if you start to give an inch to that negative thought, if you start to give an inch into anger, right, and
Right.
and and anxiety and those types of things, if you start to give it in, just give it in, letting them take over, it's like a virus. It's going to spread. It's going to take over. So you can see why a lot of people will sink back into those negative habits, because it's a lot of work to work on personal development. But I think it should be that way. Nothing's supposed to come easy, right? So we have to be
Absolutely.
able to work at things, and this is the ultimate thing to be working on, is your personal development, your positive mindset, because it's going to help your overall health in the long run, and the way you impact people, it's going to impact their mental health in the long run too.
What would you say are some practical strategies or techniques for people who want to develop and maintain a positive mindset?
So I mentioned some of these already, but I'll go into a little more detail. So number one, like, speak truth to the lies. So as soon as that negative thought comes in, you got to push it aside immediately and say something practical. Meaning, if I'm going to go on stage and the lie is, oh, this audience they're not going to like me. They're going to judge me. I'm going to immediately push it aside and say, no, I'm confident, I'm prepared, and I'm going to be a rock star out there and focus on making a great impact. And you smile and you take that stage, right? So you're immediately pushing that to the side. So speaking truth to the lies helps to develop a positive mindset, for sure. The other one I would say is an attitude of gratitude, right?
Mhm.
When you start to look for the good and look for the joy in the world, you'll find it, and it will find you back too. It's the same thing. If you buy a blue car, what do you all of a sudden start to see on the road? You start to
Blue.
see a blue car, right?
Mhm.
When you buy products, you start seeing it more. So you're looking for it. And so I would say training your brain where you're going, if you're going traveling, if you're going on an airplane, look for positive, happy things that you see all around you, and not the long lines as crying children, right? The weather
Mhm.
delays. look for an opportunity to talk to somebody and read or meditate or do something you need to do. So speak truth to the lies immediately and have that attitude of gratitude where you are encouraging, almost forcing yourself to find the good around you until it becomes a habit. And then you'll start seeing it and recognizing it more and want more of that.
I would even add to that too, and just make the statement of also noticing what is that caveat, what is triggering you, what is putting you into that negative space. So that way you have some type of a coping plan or something to kind of help you before you even get into that space to walk in there with gratitude. A broad example would be, let's say you're getting ready to go to a meeting that you're really not looking forward to going. So, kind of preparing yourself and kind of thinking, well, I get to see some people I haven't seen in a while, reconnection, finding the good. Even if you don't like the people, you can make this statement even about being thankful that you have that role where you can do whatever it is you're doing. Find some good within that, kind of create that plan ahead before you go into those spaces as well, I think can help too.
Yes, for sure. I mean, in that example, people forget, we forget the little things sometimes. So
Right.
we forget the fact that, yes, we do have a job. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we do have the ability to have an impact in that job, no matter where it is. You have the ability to speak up in that meeting and give your input or help shape something they're trying to create. You can do that. You have the ability, you're there, you're alive, you're breathing, right? I know this is on the elementary terms, but once again, as human beings, we get so busy that we forget about the fundamentals. We forget that, we get to live this life, we get to breathe this air. We're alive, we're healthy, we're the ability to drive around and do things. And sometimes when you just stop and think about that for a second, when you know how much suffering is out there and challenges in other people's lives and health and financial issues and things like that. And if you're one that doesn't have some of those things, consider yourself blessed, right? And consider yourself lucky, whatever it
Absolutely.
is that you have the ability to not have those things right now, and stop taking those things for granted. And sometimes it's those little things that can kind of jolt us back into reality.
I really like that you were talking about gratitude. Quite often, when working with individuals, that's a core focus when it comes to shift of mindset from the negative to the positive, being grateful. And if you can't even think of anything, audience, that you want to, that you can be thankful about, you can just be grateful, like you mentioned, like, that you're alive, that you're able to breathe, that you have your health. There's so many things that you can be grateful for. And I would even suggest keeping like a gratitude journal, if you want to call it that. But I know people have their electronics and things, but just noticing, even before you start your day, the things that you're grateful for. You're grateful that you're able to have that cup of coffee, or you're grateful that whatever it might be. I mean, I love the idea of focusing on the gratitude and entering into this space of thankfulness. Because what happens is, like you mentioned with the car, what starts to happen is it draws other things to you. It helps brighten the day because you start looking for the good, and the bad starts to become even more diminished.
Absolutely. And, something that I tell and talk to educators in schools about, because I do a lot of speaking and training at schools, right?
Right.
So I always say, listen, the research suggests that you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So during a break, on your way into school, on your way out of school, on the drive home, and this is for anybody listening, even if you're not an educator, wherever you are, right? If you can have
Hmm.
that quiet time, take a thank you walk, right? If you take a thank you
That's
walk
a
and you
great
just start
idea.
listing things that you are thankful for, and just thinking about, just forcing yourself to think about things that you are thankful for. My children, my faith, going to watch my son's baseball practice later, whatever it is, right? That aha moment that student had earlier, that whatever, I made that green light. I don't know, whatever it is. You can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So that the thankful feelings will supersede any of those stressful things, but you have to kind of force it in. I mean, I've even
Mhm.
had I've met teachers who keep little cards with them in their wallet or somewhere, or on their phone now, I guess is where it would be, where it just
Right.
has their list, their gratitude list, as you were mentioning, like keeping a journal or something. And they look at that list and they praying about the things on that list, and they are thinking about those things. They're adding to it. They're taking things off that maybe have been resolved, whatever it is. But remember that, listeners, right? It's physically impossible to be stressed and thankful at the same time. So, with an attitude of gratitude or a thankful walk, whatever you need to do, make sure you prioritize that time.
What would you say are some common misconceptions or myths about positive mindset that you'd like to address?
When this was first coming online, positive thinking, and when they were researching this in the 60s and 70s, it was sort of known as this hippie talk. It was sort of known as this sunshine and rainbows, rose colored glasses type thing. And people didn't think that there was realness to it, right? So I think a misconception is that, oh, when you're thinking positive, you're just ignoring the negativity and you're not dealing with anything. You're sweeping it under the rug and you're just skipping through life, la di da di da, right? And that couldn't be farther from the truth, because what we
Mhm.
found now, what we found over the past few decades, and even in recent time here, you're having some of the top universities and minds in the country now studying positive thinking. Duke University, Michigan, my alma mater, the University of Florida, are starting to look at the impact that positive thinking has on success in life. Harvard's looking at how you can feel the energy of people 5 to 10 feet away. Like they're trying to measure that impact. So my point is that the misconception is that if feelings are not real, it really very much is now. We now have research to prove the power of positive thinking, the power of positive leadership is real, and the impact is now measurable. So for those of you who need that proof, like the academic research is there. If you look at, Barbara Fredrickson has looked at it. Manju Puri, David Robinson at Duke University, they are looking at it. Just some of the top minds out there are looking at how real this is. And when you have it, it's a power that can truly transform you and others around you. It's real.
I would even say too, because there's also been a lot of talk, all the more now, people talk about speaking things into existence, manifestation, and things of that nature. And there's also studies showing that the more you speak positive things, you get that back. And so there's just so much power to that, especially with that energy. I didn't know that Howard University was actually measuring from 10 feet away. That's pretty amazing to me. That's pretty amazing to me. Can you share any personal success stories about how people have done this shift? What has their story been like, or something you've observed?
So with my experience, I work with schools as a consultant, as a coach, and as a speaker. So I've gone into schools because I run a program called the Energy Bus for Schools. So we turn
Hmm.
schools into positive places. We give them resources and curriculum based on Jon Gordon's book, The Energy Bus, whom I work with. So I've been
That's
in
so needed.
schools where
Mhm.
where they are a challenging school culture, right? Maybe they've had a lot of change in leadership. Maybe they've had just low morale after a little bit. And I worked at the school once in Colorado where they had like 5 principals in 6 years. They had no identity, right? No identity. And if you think about it as an individual, if you don't have any identity, who are you, right? You don't know what your values are. You don't know what you stand for. So I went into work with this school and they wanted a half day training on something really simple, just mission and vision. They
Mhm.
wanted to have that identity. So we put flip charts all around the room. We were crossing off ideas. We were voting for things. We were crafting their mission statement, crafting their vision statement, looking at what they value as a school. And when we were done, we had a final product of we knew what their vision statement was, we knew what their mission statement was, we knew what their values were when we were done with this workshop. And we kind of sat back and looked at our work. They looked at their work, and you could tell there was like there was an exhale feeling in that room. People were like, "That's us," right? That show, that TV show, "This Is Us." Like that was how they felt, and to me, that's a success story because you would have these individuals, these teachers who are dedicating their life to the service of students, but yet they were unhappy. They didn't have that direction, that vision, that purpose. So when we gave them that, it was a true turnaround, and they were a school that was about to be taken over by the state. Like in certain states, the state can come in and kind of
Right.
take over and like really have some oversight in what you're doing. They were
Mhm.
close to that, and they were able to really dig themselves out of that hole for sure. And that's it's been remarkable watching schools and school leaders that I've worked with that have just said, you know what, enough's enough, and it's time for a change.
That was so powerful because I also noticed that the power of positive thinking in this situation, it totally changed their identity or it helped change their perspective around their identity. And in doing that, it put them into a place where from being at risk to a place of really thriving and being successful in what they were doing, what they were trying to do. That's powerful.
That's why I love the work. And I worked at the middle school once in Kentucky where, we brought the Energy Bus for Schools program to their school. The principal wanted it. But, middle school students, teachers I love them, but they're a different breed, right? They're a little bit more independent sometimes. And we had a teacher, the principal told me that this history teacher was resistant at first, thought it was hoopla, or just wasn't a buy-in but then they started doing the activities with their students and they saw the
Hmm.
student reactions because we're teaching students positive thinking. We're teaching them about not being bullies. We're teaching them about
Right.
loving their passengers. So the teacher started doing these classroom activities that we gave to the school. And then all of a sudden, the principal tells me 6 months later that this teacher is now fully on board the energy bus, as we call it, right? They are,
Mhm.
putting students' work up in the halls. They're speaking up positively in staff meetings. They've done a 180, and it goes to show you that consistency compounds,
Right.
right? The more you do something, the more it will compound into something greater and bigger.
Hmm.
And this teacher stuck with it. The principal poured into them, and now that classroom has become a really fun, safe space for the students and for the teacher as well. They're enjoying their impact. They're enjoying their role a lot more.
Well, I want to really thank you for joining us. This is just really, really, really good information because what we're talking about is so powerful. We're talking about going from a place where you're feeling completely dark and there's no hope to a place of finding hope and how your whole perspective, your whole world can change just from going from a place of dread to a place of thankfulness, going to a place of seeing the good. And I think that's such a powerful thing. It's such a powerful thing. So I was just wondering, do you have anything coming up? Are you working on any projects that you'd like the audience to know about? How can they get to know you? And maybe there's educators or other schools that might be interested in hearing and learning more about what you do and may want to extend an invitation to you.
Of course. So I have just recently wrote a book called The Energy Bus for Schools that I co-authored with Jon Gordon. And I've known Jon Gordon for 17 years. Some of your listeners might know him. He's written 28 books, 15 of them Wall Street Journal bestsellers. So as his president of The Energy Bus for Schools, we wrote a book together with the same name. And that book's coming out March 6th, 2024. So if you're listening, whenever this comes out, it's available on Amazon. And I'm pleased to say that the book is already a bestseller on Amazon. And
Cool.
it's an amazing testimony. It's basically a blueprint for schools to follow on how to create a great, amazing culture. And they can easily go to energybusforschools.com, energybusforschools.com, and on there is links to purchase the book. There's a bio page about myself and my team. I love going in and out of schools and districts and helping our educators to thrive. So the Energy Bus for Schools program really is dynamic, and we're certifying people to deliver our material as trainers. We have a book out. We have the program out for schools. We're trying to be an ultra positive place for our schools out there nationwide.
This just came to my mind, but does the Energy Bus program, does that also go to maybe like people that are in homeschool communities as well? Can they have access to those things as well as maybe PTAs, Boy Scouts, those kinds of places?
Absolutely. It's the activity guides are designed to be broad and general. So, you'll see five principles that the schools or people can follow, and then there's activities and discussion under it that you
Hmm.
could easily do with a Boy Scout, Girl Scout troop, with a sports team, at
Right.
homeschool cohorts, right? Can work on the discussion and doing these really simple activities that don't require a lot of supplies. It's a lot of discussion and construction paper or something that you may have lying around for the younger students. So absolutely, it can, if they contact me, I can easily help them to kind of shift it towards whatever area that they're in.
So, audience, I will definitely have his information and the book as a link in the show notes, as I do for my other guests. And I want to thank you for coming onto the show. I greatly appreciate it. I think this is such a powerful conversation. It is so needed. Audience, may you move forward into a more positive space where you're going from a place of maybe you're feeling some frustration or dread to a place of happiness, wholeness, and joy. Be well, and thank you for joining us today at Elisha Space.
We've reached the end of today's powerful conversation with Dr. Jim Van Allen. It's been an enlightening journey learning about the energy bus for schools and the incredible strides Dr. Van Allen has made in shaping dynamic and positive educational environments. His insights into leadership, communication, and cultural building are invaluable tools that any educator or leader can apply. We hope today's episode leaves you motivated to bring positive change into your own spheres of influence. Thank you, Dr. Van Allen, for joining us and sharing your expertise and passion. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep making space for positivity and leadership in your lives. Remember to subscribe to Elisha Space for more inspiring episodes. Take care and keep fostering positivity wherever you go.